Rock Book Show. I'm Kimberly Austin, and look who has just popped into the computer here, Martin Popoff. Nice to see you, Martin.
Nice to see you again, Kimberly.
Well, it's so nice to talk to you again for this amazing book that you just had come out, Rush, the Illustrated History. You are Mr. Prolific. I think I saw 3 more books coming from you as well later in the year.
Yes, they're all full color coffee table books through big American publishers, which is kind of cool. And I'll have some self published stuff as well. But like the Rush, same sort of part of their series that Voyager does. I've got the Metallica book coming, and then also through them we've got a history of hair metal, which is going to be a timeline with quotes throughout. It starts in the early days, picks up all sorts of little trace elements of hair metal, but it really gets going in '83, and then we slam the door shut with the rise of Nirvana in '91. So it's basically '83 to '91, and then it's all over. Grunge takes over, and hard alternative and all that, and all forms of metal are dead. And then the last one is called 2 Minutes to Midnight and Iron Maiden Day by Day, which is, again, going to be a similar concept where it's timeline throughout, plus quotes and lots of memorabilia. So I kind of started that idea where I did this Deep Purple Royal Family 2-part book, and that one's just black and white throughout, but it's the same thing. In fact, that one has there's like 500 images in each of those books, and none of them are photography. It's all ads and memorabilia and timeline and quotes throughout. So that's the next little one.
Wow. Well, just in the Rush canon, you wrote Contents Under Pressure. You were also part of the film Beyond the Lighted Stage. But what was it about an illustrated history that made you get excited about going back and doing more Rush?
Well, actually, probably the only thing that made me do this is the fact that it is an illustrated history. Because I did a previous Rush book, an authorized Rush book, and it was more of a standard biog with a lot of photos and stuff. And I didn't want to have any repeat material because Rush fans are very demanding. Did not use any of my old quotations, any of my old interview stuff in there. So essentially, the thing I liked about it was that it did fill a gap in what was out there, and that gap really is the fact that there hasn't been tons and tons of memorabilia and live shots throughout anything in a Rush book. I mean, number one, there aren't that many Rush books, period. But the way these work in this series is that there is a history of the band, and it's pretty brief, and that was quite frustrating to do because I want to write the 300,000 word 3-volume Rush book. That's the one I want to do. It was cool doing this because it is a short history, and like I say, it fills the gap with tons, and even a lot of the major Rush fans are saying, wow, I've never seen that ad or that picture or that backstage pass or something before, so that's cool. And the other thing that I really like about it, and I've always liked about this series, is that it's got long, involved reviews of the entire catalog by various well-known rock journalists. And that's how I got involved in this in the first place, because I got to write some of the reviews in the Aerosmith, the Iron Maiden, and the AC/DC one.
And am I right, is this the first one that you've really been the captain of?
Yeah, my name's on the cover, but I feel like it's a collaboration because it is all those reviewers. A lot of the image gathering is done by Voyager, and Dennis does a great job with that. I did write the whole trunk of the book, the Rush story from start up until, in fact, months after I turned it in, Dennis called me up and says, we got to put something about the Hall of Fame in here. So at the end, it actually ends with getting into the Hall of Fame. So
oh gosh, that was an amazing induction. I mean, Dave Grohl was downright giddy during that. It was so fun to watch.
And Alex's speech, it's pretty fun. And this whole idea that it's time we it was time for Rush to get in, and there was such a clamor and a roar to get them in. But and now, I hear Kiss isn't even in, right?
Right.
Kiss is in. I think Kiss, Deep Purple, and Yes are now at the top of my list of bands that should get in, and probably even Deep Purple more than all of them.
But do you own the Rush kimono, or aspire to?
I don't have that, but a lot of the stuff in the book was from my collection. I got a lot of stuff, but no kimonos, and I don't keep tour jackets around. This stuff's way too big. I don't have a big poster collection. I can't fit any of that stuff in here. So when it comes to me and collecting, it's the tiny little paper goods that I like. Promo items and weird little stuff that can sit in filing cabinets and that. And I'm also a big autograph guy, so I've got to, I go out and get a lot of stuff signed when I do interviews, and that's actually one of the cool things about the book was that Dennis, I didn't even think he was going to use them, but I had sent him pictures of my signed Rush covers, and then in the introduction of the book, there's 3 of them there, and they say "To Martin" and all this. It's like, yeah, right on. So they're immortalized in a book now.
That is so cool. So what's a good tip for people out there who want to get an autograph? What's the best approach?
I mean, with me, it's a bit of a different case because I'm interviewing them. They know me. We've talked on the phone.
Yeah.
And hopefully it registers with these guys that we have talked before. Usually, it takes about 5 interviews for these guys to remember who you are. Most of them are on the phone. Get these guys when they're on their solo tours and their small things and playing clubs and stuff. And also, the best time to get them is at load in and sound check, which is 4 or 5 in the afternoon. Get down to the venue when they're pulling up to the venue. And the other thing is, I have a lot of guys who take a lot of stuff to get signed. Just pick 2 or 3 of your favorite things. Don't go overboard. And just be nice and get out of their hair. Don't stick around and ask a bunch of questions, and just try to get in and get out real quick.
Well, take us back to that first day of putting this project together. Where do you start? Because this is a band over 40 years, give or take. This is not the One Direction illustrated history. Where do you even begin?
I think with something like this, because I wasn't using a bunch of, I do have some of my own interview stuff that happened after the Contents Under Pressure book, but with something like this, every chapter is essentially laid out as one of the albums and tour cycles, and that's how I write all of my rock books. And you got to do that just to stay organized. At least I do. I'm too stupid to be jumping through time and doing all this crazy stuff that real rock book writers do, right?
Right.
So basically, I have to stay pretty linear and, just start at the beginning. I mean, one tip for anybody writing rock books, I would say a very important tip, is once you get started, keep doing it. Just get it finished. Stay on topic, because you start forgetting what you've talked about, what quotes you've used, your sources. So I'd say the biggest tip, start at the beginning, because that's the other thing. I mean, you don't want to, you want to start gathering quotes from where you're going to pull quotes. I mean, these aren't a very quote-intensive thing, but you want to stay organized to where you're getting this stuff and putting it in. So just staying linear is the best way to do it. But like I say, I think the biggest thing is really like stay on track and just get in writing mode and get the thing done while everything you've done is still organized and fresh in your mind. I find if I have to put aside a rock book for 2-3 weeks or something, it's just a pain getting back into it. You don't want to do it. And then you have to just where did I put everything? You gather it all, drag out all the records and CDs again, and find all those links of things on websites you can't find now anymore. And,
right, exactly. And you mentioned the album reviews, which is the fans are loving that. Did that always going to be a part of the book, or did that come as a thought later?
No, that was always going to be part of the book, because they have done some books like this already. Like I say, they've done Zeppelin, Queen, AC/DC, Iron Maiden. It's kind of just a neat concept they've come up with, and it's been a successful concept for them. And I love my favorite thing for anything I've done for Voyager so far is writing those reviews, like the AC/DC and Maiden reviews and stuff, because I think my very best writing is like when I get to write a long review of some record I grew up with, and just wing it, just go. Like Dennis doesn't tell you anything about strike a certain tone or anything, so it's wacky and almost indecipherable. And I remember totally, like I never go back and reread any of this stuff I've ever written, but the one thing I have gone back and read is those long reviews in those books. And also I did the Black Sabbath FAQ. One of the chapters in that was where I got to review the whole catalog, and I just went to town and went crazy and just assumed total perfect fanboy geek knowledge on the part of the reader. Just say whatever I want and let them figure it out.
Well, what came first for you, Martin? Were you a writer first, or were you a music fan first, and then you were able to combine the two?
Oh, big gap in there. I mean, basically, I was a fan first at like 10 years old, and I actually didn't start writing any of this stuff until I was like 30. Writing just came, I just decided to review every one of my records and did a little self-published 400-page book of like reviews of heavy metal albums, because heavy metal was always put down. Back in the 90s even, I mean, it doesn't seem that long ago, but there were not a lot of books on anything to do with heavy metal, right?
Yeah.
So I did that. I mean, I basically was just a crazy fan all those years, starting as a kid, and just decided to do that indie book. We had a company at the time that was a print broking, desktop publishing. That was an old term that was used in the 90s. Layout, graphic design type place. So I was comfortable with the whole putting together book process. I knew all the contacts. So, basically self-published a book, and one Friday night I had 69 boxes show up at my door at 8 o'clock. It's like, oh man, now what do I do with all this, right? It was an $8,000 print bill. It was a huge job. I mean, you're very ambitious the first time. You have no idea that you've ordered way too many books, kind of thing, right?
Right.
And, years and years later, and 43 books. I mean, I order, when I self-publish, I start with like 500 copies of something. It's ridiculous, right?
With each comes wisdom, yes.
You have that audacity of youth, and like,
True.
that first book, I was like a pit bull, and ended up getting like 30 or 40 reviews in magazines and stuff of it, like big reviews in big places, right? And since then, because I'm just more lackadaisical about it, I get way less reviews of any of this stuff. So it was actually the most publicized book of all of them, and the writing was horrible. I was embarrassed by it, right? I think I still have a box of them in my attic, but I won't let them loose. People keep asking for them, and it's a rarity out there or whatever. But.
Right. Well, in the introduction to the book, I was very intrigued by, you said Ray Wozniak put it over the top. Who's Ray, and why did he put it over the top?
Ray's a great guy, man. He's in Buffalo, and I first met him when we worked on the Rush movie, because we had to find a lot of memorabilia to take shots of and stuff. And there's a few fans. There's some other really serious Rush fans who've done amazing Rush scholarship. So one day, there is going to be some really academic Rush stuff coming out. I guarantee you. But Ray was close by. He was in Buffalo. So one day I went down there and saw his complete basement shrine to Rush. He had all sorts of great stuff. And so we just kept in touch. Super guy. He's been to Toronto a couple times. And I said, hey, we need more stuff. I have a lot of stuff, but I know you have the mother load too. So probably more than half, or around half of everything in there. It says on, credited under each picture, archive of Ray, or archive of me, author archive, or something like that.
So do you think there ever will be a physical Rush museum?
That's interesting, because it is actually kind of a thing that I see happening down the road more, because there are these traveling Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath-ests and stuff. So there's always been KISS conventions. There's, the movie thing is much more developed. But I honestly, that's a really neat question, because most of the times when they've had a static brick and mortar museum to any one band, they eventually fail. Usually Graceland, of course, is the main model for this, but I think the track record of having anything like that in one place is not good. But I think a future business model for all of us rock geeks is, I bet there's going to be traveling displays of this kind of stuff. Like the David Bowie is coming to Toronto soon.
Yeah.
That had a big splash opening in London. It's coming to Toronto. I'm going to go see it, So I can't see why that kind of thing's not going to happen more and more for bands.
And what do you think it is with this new Rush resurgence? And they're even more popular than ever, maybe.
Yeah, I would say so. I would think the interesting thing that Rush did that is so different from most bands is that once they became a headliner, they never stopped becoming a headliner. They kept throwing money into the show. The show was huge. I kept hearing rumors that they would take the show to Europe, and because the venues are small and stuff, they would go tour Europe as super famous rock stars and come away poorer than when they left. Like they would lose money on these tours. But that's the courage of those guys, and the fact that they want to just put on an amazing show. And now the whole world knows, like, they put on one of the most high-tech, massive rock shows, out there, period. So I think the big thing about Rush is that turned out to be a very smart strategy. Pour all the money back into the business, and never stopped being a headliner. They never played the clubs. I mean, we know all kinds of bands that probably even sold more records that play much smaller venues than Rush does day in, day out, and they just keep touring and touring and touring. So, and plus they make great records. I mean, Clockwork Angel's got great reviews, and they put a great show together. It's the first full Rush concept album, which is great. They get into the Hall of Fame. They had Snakes and Arrows. I mean, they basically keep cranking out new music. You know, not cranking out. It's not like the old days,
Right.
the 70s, where you hear these bands putting out 2 records a year and, you know, making them between tour, writing them on the road. But I think basically the fact that they never became a small band ever again after literally about Farewell to Kings, Hemisphere, 77, 78. You know, I happen to know that even, you know, back then, and I'm sure this is the same with a lot of these bands, but really they probably didn't start making pretty good money until after Moving Pictures and Into Signals. I mean, you know, they had a gold record with 2112, but really, I think that philosophy of just keep hammering it, keep getting out on the road, you know, no matter how much it costs being on the road, and just stay big, and keep that perception in people's minds that you are a big mammoth rock band, and when you come to town, it's an event. And they've done that, and I think that's what's kept them famous.
Well, Martin, it was so great to talk with you again.
Show you one more thing. This is interesting. This is the Canadian version of the book.
Oh, cool.
I have one copy of it. Indigo, which is the big chain up here, wrote, you know, they piggybacked on the print run somehow. So there's a whole separate Canadian one. I get a lot of questions about this. Like, what is that purple or blue one, right?
Yeah.
People. So I guess this is the one that's in all the Canadian bookstores, and the one that I even have a supply on that I can sell from my site is the American one. I bought a bunch of those.
Very, very cool. Well, I can't wait to read the rest of them this year. We're going to be plenty busy reading just the Martin Popoff books. Thank you so much for being here, Martin.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, Kimberly.